I was going to say, is there a little clock? And I'm like, there's that clock. Is that the ticking clock?
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. We're not bothered tonight by that. I usually disappear when I'm here. It's too loud. Because I live at a quiet retreat center. So I always joke about that clock. But sometimes it's nice to have a little clock on the desk like that. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Sorry we have a little obstructed view there. Thank you very much. My name is Amy, and I'm delighted to be back here. I'm very happy to see some of you again and to meet new people like that. So we have 2 sessions of this particular class, and I hope you could come to both classes tonight and next Monday, because I think it's helpful to kind of look at self-esteem and things like that. And happy April Fool's Day. I played a terrible joke on one of our staff people today. I told her that I couldn't be the director anymore of Mill Rapes and I had to leave, and I really couldn't be there anymore. I was struggling, and it was on a phone call. And then she said, there was this pause, and she said, because we were just having a really good time, and she said, well, what's happened? You know, like, and then I said, April Fools. I didn't want it to go on too long because I thought she'd get upset. So sometimes it just pops into my head, some April Fools thing. So I would like to start by, I'm sorry, I'm in a really feisty mood right now, so excuse me. I think it's also because baseball season started. And you all, as a lot of you know, I'm a baseball fan, and I think today the Red Sox won?
Yes.
Beat the Yankees?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So, why I know that, and I don't know much about the Prasangika Madhyamaka view, I don't know, but that's often how it is. So, somehow there's spring in the air, I think, so I got a little swept away. So, so what I'd like to do is we start with a motivation. Okay, the best thing to do, and one of the things also for self-esteem issues is, what's your purpose for doing something? What's your purpose for, like, how do we find meaning in life? It's not an easy thing to find for a lot of people, so you're not alone. But partly what comes from me is getting back in touch with coming home here. And that for me is about my motivation for doing something. And so what I mean by motivation and purpose is, in our tradition, what we are focused on is benefiting others. It's all about benefiting others. And I find that whole premise for me to operate from has completely lent meaning to my life, right from there. Now, it didn't start immediately, and I didn't understand it initially, and it's all about practicing it. So many times of the day I forget that purpose, and it's about me, myself, and I. But that's why, again, here we are at another opportunity to set a motivation. So I like to do it before classes. We dedicate at the end of a class, like that. And I find if you can just start a little exercise this week, because I hope a lot of you are back next week. So this is your homework assignment for the week, is to check on a motivation. Motivate yourself is when you, and I've done this with people before, when you wake up in the morning, okay, you're lying in bed. This is not about going to an altar, and so you're lying in bed and you're waking up. And you're noticing you're coming into consciousness, right? And at that moment, my practice starts there. So I'm immediately like, oh, great, I woke up, I'm in my bed, I'm in my body, I'm still in this life, and I know we have a number of problems. I don't know each of you individually and know what problems, but a lot of us face various challenges in life, and so I wake up, and even with my challenges, things are pretty good as far as it looks right now in this room. And I know I don't know all of you, but I don't think we're dodging bullets to get home. I don't think we're going to sleep listening to bombs dropping. I don't think we're starving. I think we have probably heat in the winter, shelter, so, you know, basic means to live. So that premise alone is pretty powerful. So I wake up in this body and I go, oh, thank you. Even when I have problems, like we don't have any money, or we need this, or we're having problems, some disharmony with someone. Great, I have this life to start from there. Thank you, I've woken up, I got another day. I get another day. That's exciting. Even if there's challenges, I still get another day to work with my mind, and right now I want to make sure I have the best premise for the day. So I would like to dedicate all the activities that I can, focus the activities of my body, my speech, and my mind as much as I can throughout the day towards helping others. And for those of you at this for a while, I'd like to direct the activities of my body, speech, and mind along a path that gets me fully awake. Fully awakened being, that's a Buddha. Buddha means fully awakened being. So I'd like to become that, and why? Because in our tradition you're unlimited as a Buddha to benefit others. Completely unlimited. Like that. So this is, I just mentioned, this is 1 minute, right? Waking moment. Now you're going to forget to do it. And then as soon as you get out of bed, so I get out of bed with that motivation. So now for the benefit of others, I'm getting out of bed. I'm going to brush my teeth, go to the bathroom, have a shower, have coffee, whatever you do in the morning. Okay? So tonight, your job is, you have to leave yourself a note tonight so you remember in the morning. Right? Because most of us will forget, and then what happens is you forget, and then you get upset with yourself. So now what does that do for anybody? Right? I forget all the time. Right? I'm at that age where I'm allowed to forget all the time, right? I forget all the time. So I'm okay, I forget. I'm a human being. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I make mistakes. So practice is about, spiritual practice is about reminding yourself. Mindfulness. And sometimes you set the motivation in the morning, you get out of bed, and in the next moment you've completely forgotten that motivation. And you won't remember it again until the evening. Maybe you come back and some people have a little practice then. And you go, well, you know, I have this motivation in the morning, and I never thought about it again. You know, it was all about me all day. Okay, that's okay. That's normal. That's normal. So this is slowly practice, you know, practice makes you perfect, right? It makes you a Buddha. Buddha's perfect. But it takes practice. It takes, you know, you have to get that deeply entrenched route as well, because we have these other patterns going that we have a deep imprint. So here's another helpful thing in the morning you can try. You have a motivation. And you don't have to get out of bed right away, but you have this motivation, and maybe then you can think that and just have a moment of appreciating the life that you have. Great antidote to low self-esteem. Appreciating what you have right now. Here, I have a question. Is there any way to move that tonka? Because I can't see. Is that possible without, yeah, that one right there. Do you mind, or?
No, does it like it's green guitar, we're doing a classic guitar, but
oh, nice.
He's finished the class, so it's a good time to take it down.
Oh, that's it. No, I didn't wait, but I just thought maybe we can move it somewhere else just for the, because it really obstructs a lot of the, that's fine, those are, the banners are okay, but that gives, greetings. They paid special price for the obstructed view seats, right? So, what I find is as you're lying in bed, you can visualize, those of you that are visual, how about a golden drop goes into your crown, and it's a drop of, I call it a drop of gratitude. And it goes into your crown, you're lying in bed, goes into your crown, and you let this little golden radiant ray move all around like a little ball, like through the scalp, the hair, the skin, and it goes through your entire, just visualize it moving through your entire body slowly, however long you want to spend. Goes through all the neurological activity, blood cells, through every organ, through your whole digestive tract, through the heart, lungs, the whole thing, through your skin. And just appreciate, and let a wave of appreciation move through you, of just appreciating the good stuff that you have, right? Possible? Okay, we might try that a little bit later. Drop of gratitude. Because what happens with the low self-esteem mind, right, is you have a trench, very deep for some of us, of everything wrong you've ever done, right? Does anybody relate to that? You know, you make one mistake during the day, right? And how often does your mind revisit that, as opposed to all the good things you did through the day? It's amazing, isn't it? Just a pattern, just a habit. It takes about 2 weeks to make a new habit. So this is the practice, is every time the caca tape comes up, right? I'm not good enough, I'm lousy, I did this, I made a mistake today. And that gets a lot of airtime. You have to counter it with giving something positive you do some airtime. Because who in here is just caca? Is anybody? No. Absolutely not. Why? Because you have Buddha nature. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a moment. So let's set a motivation. See, in 10 minutes you got all the answers. Okay? That's it. That's all I know, really. That's it. All reduced down to 10 minutes. Okay? But let's set a motivation. Let's just close your eyes lightly. Just try to sit up straight. Give your system a nice open space from which to operate. And slowly allow yourself to settle here in the space of this room. Let go any of the distractions of the day right now. This is your time to indulge yourself. Those things are not going anywhere. They will be there later. And just allow your body also to relax. Checking if you're holding tension in your brow or your jaw, your neck or shoulders, and just let it go. So think about your purpose for being here right now and see if you can expand it to consider other beings as well. Because maybe you came here to get some information this evening that could benefit your heart and mind. That's great. Maybe it'll open you up to some new way of thinking that will greatly benefit you, lend more peace and happiness to yourself. And so let's just see if we can expand beyond that, that may we then share that attitude with others as much as possible. And if you're on a Mahayana track, Mahayana means greater vehicle, which is the Tibetan Buddhist path. It's actually that you want to open yourself up to more peace and happiness so you can progress along a path to full awakening. Because then you're then unlimited in how you can best serve all others. So just take a moment, see how that motivation sits with you. If you can align your motivation with that, that's great. And just set a good intention right now for this time. So please relax. And actually, wait, while we're still in this position, so here's a fundamental meditation. It's an alternative meditation on precious human rebirth that we're going to speak about tonight. This is about appreciation, gratitude. So this is an alternative way to do it, is let's just reflect right now on the positive things in your life. Let's take some fundamentals. Relatively clean air and water. So just take a moment, reflect on this. What it is like in your life to have relatively clean air and water. This is a luxury in a lot of undeveloped countries. So we take for granted going into the kitchen, taking a glass out of the cabinet, and just turning on the tap and drinking right from the tap. Cannot be done in many, many countries, or you'll become very ill from the drinking water. And just think of basically when you go outside, you can walk outside day after day. I just led a pilgrimage to India and Nepal in January and February. And in Nepal, normally now in Kathmandu, after 3 days, I have an upper respiratory infection because of the air quality. Many people develop coughs, have sore throats, very, very common. Imagine what it would be like here if that was the situation. What would your life be like? Moving around with air quality like that. Think of the great advantage you have then of having relatively clean air and water, and allow this appreciation to wash over you. Because in Buddhism, we say you created that for yourself. And really let that wave of appreciation soak through every pore of your skin, every cell, every atom. Think about our access to decent public education that we have from childhood. Think about some basics like having shelter and having some decent food to eat whenever you want. And then think about situations in the world where people don't have that. Imagine, what would that be like if that was your life? So again, come back to your current life with shelter and food and decent education that we've all been entitled to. Just appreciate what you have, what you've created for yourself. Just let it flow through every thought, every mental experience, total mind and body. So please relax. Slowly, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So, how do you feel now? Did anybody come in with a different mindset? Do you feel better now? Or no? Same? Any comments? Observations?
I feel more grateful.
You feel more grateful?
Yes.
Other people? Feel more
happier.
happier?
I like myself better.
Peaceful.
Peaceful?
Not so busy.
Mhm.
More connected.
Okay. Some people feel the same, right? Some people feel the same? Not really? A few people? So this is your practice. This is something I really recommend if you can do this every day. It really makes a difference. Why? Because you have another pattern of doing it differently, right? How many of you wake up in the morning like, oh? No, really, there's a habit of people wake up that way and say, oh, even if the alarm goes off, okay, you can still do this practice. Why? Because it kicks you out of, I don't know how many of you are complainers, whiners. We are a culture of whiners. It's kind of the truth, justice in the American way, you know. There's a little bit of that, okay? So almost a year ago, a girlfriend of mine and I, we made a commitment to each other that we were going to stop complaining. And I think we started May 1st. Somehow it was just something we decided on the spur, and we were on a phone call. She's in California. So we somehow were talking about it, and then she said, you know, I don't feel very good when I complain. And I said, me too. And then I said, I complain all the time, but it doesn't really serve anybody. So then we made this commitment to each other. We had little contests we'd have about... So I failed miserably the first month. I just bombed, you know. I was just complaining all the time. I just couldn't even... But I was more observant of how unhappy I was when I was complaining. So this path for you and what I'm talking about, I will mention that I'm just giving you information. So it's your job to figure out, does it work for you? I'm not going to say this path is for you. I'm not going to force it down your throat. I'm just giving you information, and you have to be discerning and investigate thoroughly everything I'm saying and basically try it on. Cook it, right? So that you see, does this really work what she's saying? Like, maybe I'll try that in the morning. I'll wake up and, you know, if you don't try it, there won't be much change in your mind. I guarantee. But if you'd like to change something, you have to engage in the practice a little bit. That's just been my path. That's what I did. The stuff I didn't do didn't really have any effect. If I did try something, I liked the effect. It had a positive effect on me, and that's why I continued. You have to try like that. That's the hard part. So unfortunately, this is a path that takes effort. We don't really want to hear that, right? But the thing is, we know how to make effort, right? Who's the person who said, I feel less busy, right? Okay, we're busy people. I'm busy. We're really busy. So, but question, here's the thing about lending meaning to your life. Are you busy? Are you directing your busyness into worthwhile things that lend to your happiness and inner peace? Because a lot of our busyness, let's be honest, right? It ain't doing that. So again, this is a path about getting honest with yourself, being honest with yourself, getting real. And the beginning of it, it's hard because I had to look at things in myself, and I thought I was a pretty okay person when I got into Buddhism. And then all of a sudden, all this, as you start observing your mind, you start to see all this gunk that comes up. Then I didn't like myself very much, even more. I thought, well, that's not beneficial. It doesn't. But you have to kind of wait. It's as if spiritual practice is, I don't have a clear glass here. You know when you have a clear glass, water, tall glass, but in the bottom there's a little bit of dirt? But it looks pretty good. Got a pretty clear glass of water here. I know there's a little dirt in the bottom, but right now it looks really good. It's clear. So spiritual practice is when you put the stirrer in. And then suddenly you have a murky glass of water. And you go, well, I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore because now the glass of water looks awful. But the thing is, you first have to stir it up to see what's in there before you can get rid of the stuff you don't like. So just hang in there. And if you come to my classes, I'm here, you know, we're in this together. So that is a typical passage to go through, like that. But the beginning is to get started. So we've got a lot of exercises right now. You've got the waking up, setting a motivation, right? You've got a drop of gratitude, and then this meditation took it a little further. Because spend some time like that every day with yourself. We don't appreciate ourselves very much, do we? Do you think so? I mean, do you think that's something? I think that's a big plague of Western civilization. We just don't appreciate the good qualities that we have. We have lots of good qualities, but somehow the one mistake you make during that month, that's what you focus on. Some of my friends, we talk about where does it come from? Where does it come from? Anybody, honestly, where do you think it comes from? I'm curious myself. I have some theories, but with friends, but anybody have any ideas? Why do you think, yeah, Deborah?
Well, I've heard someone say, who was European, that it's a very American thing to do. It's because, and her theory was because the United States is looked up as sort of the premier country and everything's, you know, just done right here. And so that we have this complex that we have to be really good and we know we're not that good. So it's a social thing.
Social thing, cultural thing, right? Cultural thing. Now we're not all from the U.S. here. Are you from the U.S.?
No.
Do you have this feeling? That
Not good enough? Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Do you think you still suffer from that? Yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Because I do find some of my Asian friends have less of it, I find. Tibetans, not a whole lot. We could ask Geshe-la, you know, but they don't even have a word for guilt in their language. That's why I'm a Tibetan Buddhist, right? I'm interested in that, huh? You know, that totally wowed me. Are you kidding me? There's no word for guilt? His Holiness didn't understand the word initially. Took them a while to, and he didn't understand the low self-esteem thing. Took him a while with the translator, years ago for them to explain. So we've got a cultural thing, other reasons why people think cultural, social thing. Ed?
I think in the West, and it's going to be doing this the day after Easter, I think in the West, the religions that have shaped our culture focus on you're really a bad person, you're guilty, all sinners in the eyes of an angry God. In day after Easter, Easter starts with original sin and redemption. But you're bad, and without Christ, you're never going to make it. And I think it's just part of the religions that dominate Western culture do not build healthy self-esteem.
Isn't that sad? I find that so sad. What other things? Anybody else have any theories? Yes, go back there.
I think that it is cultural in the sense that we're a very competitive culture. We're always kind of like comparing ourselves to each other. I do think that like our religious background could, you know, play into that, but I think in America, because our country was formed that way, people just being, you know, breaking away from England and everything that went into building the country, and just like, you know, you have to be independent, you have to do everything on your own, you have to like keep it, you know, just something about our thinking keeps telling us we're not enough, and it translates into a lot of our materialism too, because that's how we try to prove, like, look how hard I worked, look, you're working 40 hours, but I'm working 65 hours, and I drive a better car because of it, and I think people constantly go through that with every phase of life we have in this culture, from like kindergarten to what college you go to you know what job you get after college, and then who's getting married and having kids first, or who isn't, and who's having a better time doing either, and who has a better house, and it doesn't end.
What's your name?
April.
April, yeah. This is the Northeast, right?
Yes,
This is the
very much
Northeast
the
of the States. This is
too.
a vibe, okay?
Yes.
They're
yes.
very true. I think it's true. I think all of these things are true. It's interesting. I mean, I grew up on the East Coast. This is a real East Coast, Northeast vibe. And then I moved to California, and it's like, go to California. People don't think that way there. It was so refreshing. But I was raised in this culture that, wow, it's intense, isn't it?
Yes, I agree.
You know, you got to keep up with the Joneses. And here we are in Boston area, where you have some of the best, you know, higher level education in the entire world. So, you know, everybody's posturing themselves, you know, oh, why didn't you didn't get into Harvard? Oh, you know, it's interesting. It's really a lot of pressure. And now, you know, I was just talking with someone about their daughter going to university. There's more, it seems like more competitive now than when I went. It's a shame. And one thing it reminds me is Holiness, the Dalai Lama. I recently was like watching some old video of him or something, and he said, I think a reporter asked him about 2 main things for happiness or something, and he said, don't be competitive and don't be a hypocrite. And I thought, wow, that's like, it just boiled down to that, isn't it? If you could get those out of the way, I think I'd be pretty happy, right? So I think there's a lot in that. So there's something to think about these things. Sorry, yes? Maybe one last comment about...
With our culture, I just think we have a very unnatural sense of fear and how we go about fear. Fear is natural, but we use it to control us and water manipulation, and that's actually something for us to, for survival, to get out of the way of something or to progress towards something. We as a society tend to let fear dictate us as if there's something to be ashamed of. And that comes from all different areas, from capitalism down to the different types of religions, but that's very dominant, and it's a very unhealthy use of fear.
Yeah, and what's underneath fear, do you think? Because fear's a big one for people. Fear comes up and you're paralyzed. You know, it could be any kind of fear. It could be...
It's the avoidance of fear, though. It's the not using it for what it's meant for. That's how I see it, how I understand it.
What's it used for, fear? What would you say it's used for, fear?
Well, if you got a deer running through the woods, right, and a bear jumps out, if you use this fear correctly, it runs. It gets out of this. It gets itself out of that area. It
like
survives.
An instinctual
Exactly,
thing,
it's
right?
instinctual.
Okay.
It's an instinctual survival mechanism. But when we avoid it, we get stuck. When we avoid it, it's the same thing mentally, physically. We get eaten.
Right. So sometimes you have to, our path is a lot about analysis, analyzing. What causes fear? What causes me to feel less worthy? What causes me to, you know, you have to, so this is a path you have to analyze. You have to figure out, you know, so with fear is a good one sometimes. When you feel fearful, which contributes to low self-esteem and not having meaning in life, what do you think's underneath that?
It's the thought.
The thought that creates, and what's the thought about though? What kind of thought would contribute to fear, would you say?
Not being lovable.
Not being lovable?
But these are instilled values, I see.
What, not being lovable, or?
Well, these are things that we're taught. I mean, when we're infants, we don't have these feelings of not being, you know, I mean, we have our basic instincts, but it's not about the...
But there's something underneath it, often, for most of us, maybe not everyone, there's something underneath of it that tends to really make fear jump up.
I think the primary fear is the fear of death.
Yeah, that. Okay? So if you start to analyze, okay, because what's underneath fear on one level is a loss of control. Would you say? Nobody wants to be out of control. It could be on many levels. It could be on a minor little level where, you know, I'm getting up in the morning, this is what I have for breakfast. That kind of, you know, to huge control. Your kid's a drug addict and you can't control them, or you can't control that your boss just fired you and you won't be able to pay your mortgage. So notice when this control, some of us are very controlling and some are less controlling. Some people have less of a need to control, some have a lot. But when you don't have that kind of control, and ultimately what we're trying to control is that we're not going to die. You can't control that. You can't control that. And what do you really have control over?
Your state of mind.
Your mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Right.
Sorry to break it to you.
Yeah.
I know you think you can control things, but you can't. You don't have any control. I mean, yeah, you'd say, well, I have control if I go to work tomorrow night. You know, okay, there's a practical reality. But really the only thing you can control is your mind. And what's exciting about Buddhism is you can change your mind. You're not stuck in the way you are now. Not at all. Far from it. So if there's parts of you don't like, and you feel like, I've been like this forever, I'm a depressed person, I'm always angry, you can totally transform. That's what's exciting. So what we're trying to control, you got your mind, And when you're dying, that's all you've got. So let's invest ourselves into patterns that will benefit our mind, you know, open up that spacious, luminous experience, so that when you die, your eyes are open. I know this is a natural part of living. There's nothing I can do, it's going to happen, and you peacefully shift right through it. That's exciting. Rather than the way most people go down, you know, clutching, grasping, fear, terror, all those other kinds of things. Desperation, like that. So once you kind of analyze that and you go, well, I can't do anything about death, it's all, the fear starts to subside because you start looking at it. So I think with each thing you really have to analyze what's happening. So the low self-esteem also, what we talked about, I think you're all right, all the things you brought up, different people. And I do find, for me, one of the things I got to is those of us, most of us in the room, maybe not everyone, raised in Judeo-Christian religions, right? Okay? So original sin. Just the words original sin, like, what is that about? In Buddhism, you don't have original. There was no original bad. It comes from a previous cause. Okay, so the mind is a continuum, right? No beginning or no end. Our mind is a continuum of mental activities, of thoughts, one giving rise to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Every one has a preceding cause. The thought doesn't just come from somewhere, it comes from another previous thought that caused it. And this particular thought is a result of a preceding cause. So and this is causing the next moment, and that causes the next moment of mine, that causes the next moment of mine. And there will always be a subsequent result. So there's no end to your consciousness. And there's no beginning, there's no original. It's so heavy. The beginning, you know, why? Because she took a bite out of the apple, for God's sake? And then the blame and everything external. Blame everything external. Let's think about it. I'm not laying a trip on these religions. There's beautiful things about these religions, but it's heavy. It's heavy. We're trying to get enlightened, not in heavy. Seriously. Okay? This is about enlightenment. It's a totally different premise. Why? Because in Buddhism, fundamentally, this is what's exciting. You have something called Buddha nature. Buddha nature. What is that? It doesn't mean you're a Buddha. What it means is there's a seed or a potential, okay, that can ripen into a fully realized being. There's a potential and a seed in every single being in this room right now, and every being that has a consciousness, a mind, okay, which includes tiny insects and things like that, okay? They have what's called Buddha nature, and it's a potential and a seed that can be awakened. It can be uncovered, unobscured. And when you get rid of all the stuff covering it up, and when you create all the conditions that make it glow, you become a Buddha automatically. That's a fully awakened, fully enlightened being. And then you're omniscient, you're clairvoyant, you're fearless as well. You're fearless. That sounds, I signed up for that. That sounded good to me. You know, why not? Hey, nobody else ever offered me that. I checked out other religions. Nobody had that on the plate that was an option. That was accessible to me. That was accessible. This was really accessible. Lots of books in English. Lots of people teaching. Lots of centers everywhere. You know, and not people saying, you know, you want to get free? Well, follow me. But people saying, you want to get free? Here's a technique. Here's some information. You have to apply it. You figure it out how this works in your life. The Dharma doesn't change. Dharma is the same. You have to figure out, I got to make some time to meditate. I have to make some time to study and apply this. And it does take some effort, right? But how exciting. You can be free of all your fears, omniscient, you know, and then when you're omniscient, you're all-knowing, so you know exactly, somebody comes to you, I need help, and you know exactly what to say or do, think perfectly of what most benefits them. Like that. Right now I'm so limited. Somebody comes to me and I'm kind of like, sometimes I don't know what to say. I mean, I say from whatever experience I have, my own studies, wisdom, compassion, you know, the little bit I've developed, sure. Try to help people, of course. But you're never quite sure, I wonder if that really helped, you know, is that the best thing to say? So everyone has Buddha nature, and the reason we're not Buddhas now, right, is because don't you occasionally feel angry? Don't you sometimes feel tight and anxious, stressed, depressed, confused, maybe arrogant? That's why we're not Buddhas. So what we do is you have to look at that in your mind, in a gentle, compassionate way. And then you learn the antidotes to apply for the various delusions that arise. And then you work on that in your practice, chipping away, and then they transform. So automatically a good behavior arises. And does it take time? Yeah, it does. If you're 40 now and you've been doing it one way, you can't expect in 2 weeks to suddenly, well, I should be done with my anger now. I've been trying to do the meditation for 2 weeks, and you have to be patient with yourself. Because we're making new patterns, Okay? So I think it's just acknowledging that we have Buddha nature. There's a famous story. Some years ago, His Holiness the Dalai Lama met with some of the foremost Western teachers of Buddhism in the West at a conference, like 20-some years ago. And a lot of the famous Buddhist teachers now, I don't know, maybe Sharon Salzberg was there, and Joseph Goldstein, and different, many psychologists, prominent psychologists, and so he asked them, and one of them brought up the question about low self-esteem. He said, I get these feelings, and how do we counsel people, and I myself have these feelings. So Jimpa, the translator at the time, Thupten Jimpa, he translated to His Holiness, and then they engaged in this whole conversation for like 10 minutes. Because His Holiness didn't quite get the concept of what Jimpa was saying. What do you mean? Like, who could feel that way? And they went on and on, and finally His Holiness got it. And he was kind of stunned. And then he said to I think Bob, did you ever heard Bob Thurman? And he was sitting, all these people like this, sitting there. And he asked each of them, do you feel this way? And they said, yeah, sometimes. Do you feel this way? And they all acknowledged that at times they felt that way. And then His Holiness said, and you see it's videoed, and he said, why? He said, you have Buddha nature. Like what? So what happens is we've had a pattern where the fundamental seed is bad. That's a lot why we feel that way. And then it's reinforced because of the social, these things like, oh, you didn't get a Camry? You couldn't afford it? Oh, wow, that's too bad. And then you go home thinking, is there a reason I should feel bad because I don't have a Toyota Camry? But people go home and they wear it home and they think, oh, because you don't have that kind of office at work, and because you didn't go to that university, and because you don't have that much money, or because you live in that town and it's kind of a little bit on the borderline, So it's reinforced because fundamentally the insecurity comes from fundamentally not feeling good about yourself because somebody's telling you in the beginning, originally something went wrong with you. So all you end up doing is flailing out there, trying to pull stuff in, trying to distract yourself externally so that you'll feel better, but it ain't going to come from outside. You can have the big house and the shiny car and all that stuff, and there's people in my life, I know you probably know people that have all that, and are they happy? Really long-term happy? I mean, after being at this actually I'm now on my 26th anniversary of meeting Buddhism, right? Initially when I got onto the path, I used to work in politics in Washington, D.C., so for people that work in politics in Washington, D.C., this is really not an option to become a Buddhist nun. And I didn't become a nun for a long time. I was at this for 13 years before I got ordained, and not everyone has to get ordained to be a good practitioner, right? And a lot of monks and nuns are not good practitioners, so it doesn't mean we're any holy being. But in the beginning, a lot of my friends were very rattled that I was studying Buddhism. And then I moved to California, and then I was running a center, and they didn't understand, like, why had I fallen off the wagon and I had this really unconventional life, and it freaked some of them out. So there was a lot of judgment in the beginning. And then when you get older and people mature, people kind of accept, right? So then people came out and visited me at these centers. And centers were really beautiful, and they noticed that there was a quality around my life, even though you wouldn't think of this with center directors, right, Deborah? But there was a relaxed quality around my quality of living. even though center directors are maniacs and are, crazy most of the time, right? But in general, we're not doing brain surgery, and there can be a semblance of, because you at least feel that you're doing worthwhile work, for sure. So they came and they would visit, and they, and a few of them said to me, I was amazing that they admitted, and these are people top of the game, very successful, board chairs of corporations, very wealthy, I mean whatever, these people I used to live and work with, and they said to me that they got this level of attainment that they wanted. They've got the condo and Vail and money and the whole bit, the kids in private school and whatever, and they said at the age of 50, let's say, they still weren't really satisfied. They were still feeling like there was something left that they hadn't done or explored, or there was still this, and it was amazing, they admitted that to me. And they said, you seem to be kind of content. And I think I am deeply. Even though sometimes my life's spinning out of control with the center and stuff, but fundamentally, when I go to bed at night, I'm just like, it was a good day. Why? Because I served others. Because I tried as best as I could to serve others. Do I make mistakes in that process? Continually. All the time. Right? I try to learn from them, I try to pick myself up, but I feel like it's really worthwhile. So there is this contentment. So part of making your life meaningful is figuring out, and it's not easy for some people, is when are you most content? What experiences, and you can write it down, chart it. If you ever notice it, and I started to chart this before I met the Dharma, is I was kind of noticing, I was really happy in that photo. What was I doing in the photo? What was my, thing, do you know what I mean? Am I speaking? Am I communicating?
Mm-hmm.
Is try to, even if it's a day, one day, just take in the day, when did you feel the most peaceful and content during the day? And then try to understand what was happening for you around that. What was happening around it? And what were you thinking about? Were you thinking about yourself mostly? Were you thinking about others? What were you doing? What were you saying? What were you eating? Really, but it's interesting to explore that. I mean, oddly enough, I even got it down to where I found out that Tuesdays were very good days for me. Like I noticed that each time I was in, I was like, oh, that was a Tuesday. Oh, look, I'm so happy. But, just oddly enough, I remembered that it was always a Tuesday that was good. Monday's not so good. Today was a little, somehow, off-kilter. And I was born on a Monday, so at least that was probably a good day. So do you know what I'm saying? This is a fundamental thing about starting, is you have to start to identify that, and also identify, here's the same token, when you're not happy. When you're not really happy, I mean. And is there a theme for the not happies? The not happy moments? Is there a theme that's a line, a thread you can trace that this is a habit I do? Or every time I hang out with those people, I don't feel comfortable. I feel, there's certain people you hang out with, right? And they don't make you feel that good about yourself. Do you have those people in your life? Right? So the beginning tonight is we're just looking at that. Next week, we're into fixing some of it. You can't fix it all, but we're going to continue on. But there are things. So I just want you this week, how many people might come back next week? Do you think a lot of you? Okay, good. So this is the homework, because I want to check, and I want examples. What you notice, you need to track some of this. I'll put it this way, you will get more out of it if you're really working on it. I can see some people are there tonight, and they're kind of like, yeah. And they're going to come back next week and go, and not have thought about any of it the entire week. So that you will get more benefit out of it if you do some of these exercises. Really, I promise you. I'd like to hear about how it went. And maybe one day you miss the morning motivation. Okay, you start the next day. Or you start wherever you are in that day. Sometimes I get to, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it's 3 in the afternoon. I go, oh God, I never really thought about my motivation today. I mean, now it's so automatic for me. But initially it wasn't at all, and I go, God, I never thought about it all day. I've just been kind of up motoring through. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's all okay. That's the main thing. Is you might even want to start to have a mantra. I'm okay. I'm okay. I know there's this story I like. Sharon Salzberg, great Vipassana teacher in Massachusetts, and she has a wonderful book I highly recommend that helps lend meaning to your life, and it also helps with low self-esteem, called Loving Kindness. It's a great book. Loving Kindness. So one of the things in there, when you have loving kindness, when you do something wrong, and I'm just curious, when you do something wrong, big or little, what's your response? Seriously?
Self-blame,
Self-blame.
punishment.
Mm-hmm. Other responses?
Shame.
Shame.
Shame. Shame.
Apologetic.
Apologetic.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Regret.
You're Asian, you're not supposed to feel guilty.
Trying to blend in.
Regret. Regret. Now, where are you from? So, this cultural thing we were talking about, do you feel that in Mexico? You do, you have it in Mexico a bit. Yeah, I've been to Mexico a lot of times. They have a nice culture, Mexicans. I love Mexican culture. Very nice. So, regret. Other thing. Okay, so you do something wrong, and these are, do you ever have regret and I'm okay? You know, apologetic and I'm okay? Or guilt and I love myself anyway? You see what I mean? There's like a forgiveness aspect right away. So she has a story where she's rushing around to get off onto some retreat and leave, or she has to pack to go to some teaching thing, and she brushes her vanity with her hand, and a glass drops and it breaks all over the floor. You know, and she starts with, "Oh, you're so stupid," right? How many times do you do that? You're so stupid. Like what? You know, she says, "You're so stupid, and I love you anyway." Right? So there's a little exercise you can try this week. Right? Because it's an amazing little thing of, I just screwed up, and I'm okay. You know, I just screwed up, and I still like myself. You know, I just screwed up, and I'm going to do better next time. Here's a great, I just screwed up, and here's a great opportunity for me to learn something new. Right? Do you see the positive twist? You have to start interjecting some kind of positive twist. You know, I know our culture doesn't want you to do that. So this is where we become spiritual warriors. Right? You have to be strong. You have to be strong to be on a spiritual path like this. And is it worth it? Absolutely. This is about making new habits, introducing new habits. I know it takes effort. Okay? But possible to try that, and you put it into your own words. I'd love to hear new little positive affirmations that come out of it. You know, some of them are funny, some of them are hysterical that people come up with. Yes?
I'm finding that when something wrong happens, I now laugh. I just leave that part out that says, how stupid, or you did it again, or why did you do that? I leave it out and I say, just laugh.
Thank you, yeah.
And it's a wonderful way to release, and other people laugh with you. It's,
right. Remember when, sometimes it's like we a little bit need to go back to the age of innocence when we were kids. Do you remember in the cafeteria, if somebody would drop their tray or something, people laughed and applauded. I mean, in my cafeteria, that's what they did. And on some level, like, okay, there might have been a little reading of, like, is this stupid, but some of it was fun. Like, they dropped the tray, okay, you know, it got dropped. So, you know, so what? You know? So I thought of those times when kids would laugh or applaud, and we make a mistake, we don't applaud. Nothing to applaud about. Applause is for something you appreciate, right? So we don't appreciate, there's a piece of not appreciating ourselves. So I think that's great to, now granted, you have to find the right context to laugh, because if somebody really messes up and you're in it and then you laugh, sometimes it upsets people. But, you know, to laugh at yourself is really a helpful thing in the right way, with the right, you know, the right healthy, we're building healthy self-esteem here, like that. Yes?
Just let it go.
Just let it go. Yeah, fantastic.
So, my husband and I have something we do when somebody drops something or says something wrong, and it's not too serious, and one of us will say, "Oops," and for some reason that just makes it lighter and easier.
Yep. Yep. So you can have your little catchphrase. I know people that do that. It's really helpful. It's like, okay.
I'm getting a kick out of being on the mic stand.
Doing a great job. Okay. Okay. So one more question, and I want to talk about something. Yeah. Please.
I've lately been using terms of endearment for myself.
Wonderful.
You know, saying, okay, honey, now you really have to get to bed. Or, oh, sweetheart. You know, I've been calling myself those kind of sweet names, and it has a very gentling effect.
Yes. Yes. It's very sweet. It's very, you know, why not?
It really is.
We're our best honey, basically, right? And this is a path of, and I know this sounds like a cliche, of getting to know yourself better and getting to be your own best friend. I know that sounds like a cliche, but honestly, this is the path for that. You're stripping away everything to get right down there. And some of it you're looking at and you're going, thanks very much, but I'm cleaning that pattern out. That doesn't benefit me anymore. I don't need it. I acknowledge where it came from and I know who it is, but I don't really need that anymore. And this stuff I really want to enhance. And then eventually, when you kind of synthesize and integrate all that negative stuff, it just floats away on its own. This is not about repression, suppression, denial. Nope. You got to look at it. You're stirring up. You got to stir it up. So let me talk about traditionally the human situation in Tibetan Buddhism. What they say in our tradition, the Gelugpa tradition, the human situation, and this runs through some of the other lineages, Nyingmapa, Kagyupa. They also have teachings on the human situation. Okay, this is from one of my favorite Lamrim books, The Essence of Refined Gold. The Essence of Refined Gold is a premier Lamrim book. Okay, Lamrim is our underlying philosophy in the Gelugpa tradition. Lam is path. Rim is stages or steps. The steps of the path. Okay? What is the path to enlightenment? So isn't it interesting that it's steps? It's a gradual process. That's how we transform. Americans wanted it 2 weeks ago all wrapped up in a nice little gold box. That is not this path. If you want a path like that, this is not it. Okay? It's a gradual process to transform and evolve more fully. Okay? So that indicates that you, number one, have to be patient with yourself. So every time you drop something on the floor, when you make a mistake, when you screw up, you know, it's like if somebody else did it, would you react to them and think that they're crap? No. So why do we do it to ourselves? Okay? Because on this path, we're trying to benefit all sentient beings, we would say. All sentient beings. So I'm a sentient being. Right? I'm included in this as well. But somehow we leave ourselves out and we're all like, oh, sorry, you messed up the project, but I mess up the project and that's not okay. Okay, so you have to start understanding how the triggers, what triggers your mind, what little habits, what trenches you fall into. The ruts are deep of those patterns. So again, you have to be very skilled. You know, in this part of the country, we cross-country ski, right? I've used this example before. How many of you have been cross-country skiing, right? Yeah. So, you know, there's cross-country skiing and there's backcountry skiing, correct? Cross-country skiing, you can go on a really nice groomed trail and it's great, easy. Backcountry, you're breaking trail. So this is breaking trail, and it's hard work. Okay. But then you make a new trail. So generally, if you come back on that same way, you're kind of like, oh, now it's easier. You know, now I know this path. Okay, so it's a little bit like that. So the human situation in Tibetan Buddhism is sometimes traditionally called precious human rebirth, or perfect human rebirth. And this is the beginning often of the Lam Rim. And the beginning is, in order to really practice well, you have to be basically mentally well balanced. This is not really a path for people really mentally ill. You have to get to some level of mental stability. And so the beginning is they try to instruct you about the great situation that you have. So you can start from that balanced perspective of this human situation. And what they do traditionally is they talk about 18 situations that you have. And they're broken down into something called the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments or richnesses. 8 situations you're free from as a human, and 10 situations that you have. 5 of them are environmental, 5 of them are personal. Okay, so let's look at some of these situations. The first 4 of the 8 freedoms are common to all humans, okay? So you're free from various rebirths, okay? Buddhism does have a hell realm. Actually, it has many. Okay, so this is where the Catholics are like, I'm out of here. Not interested in this. It does have hell realms. How many of you have had teachings on precious human rebirth before? So not that many people, okay. So we do have hell realms. There are not only burning hot hell realms, we have freezing cold hell realms. The distinction, and what gets you into the hell realms, are sadistic killing, things like that. Really outrageously bad behavior with a very harmful intent. That's what gets you. It's all caused by something that you've done, thought, or said. And those are the kind of things, very extreme things like that. The difference in the Catholic hell realms, or the Catholic hell and the Buddhist ones, the Buddhist realms, all of these realms are temporary. And you are in that realm until you exhaust whatever karma got you into the realm, and it eventually exhausts, and then you move out into a different type of rebirth. Okay? So we are free from being in 3 what's considered lower states. Hell, being what's called a preta, P-R-E-T-A, is a Sanskrit word for hungry ghost. Okay, that's the next realm up from the hells. What that means is there are beings that are starving, and there's all kinds of things. They basically spend their entire life searching for one tiny morsel of food, and what causes them to take rebirth in that realm is intense desire and attachment. I mean, it makes sense, right? You know, then they're without all the time, like that. The next realm up is the animal realm. This is a realm we interact with. We see animals, we have animals, okay? But what happens is we mistake this as our domestic pets. How many of you have pets? Right? A lot of us, okay? We have a couple cats at the center. And when she lies all day in the sun on the comfy cushion on the sofa, and I'm stressed about something at the center, I walk by her and I think, oh, doesn't that look good? You know, she has not a fear in the world. It's not true. It's not true. Animals don't understand. They can't study Dharma. And basically, that domestic cat is at the peak of the animal realm. Most animals live in the sea, and the animal realm is consumed with, again, you have to check this out, it's consumed with killing other animals and eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, being hunted, or making more animals. That's the animal realm. Okay, now there's service animals. That's the peak of the animal realm. And our domestic pets are the top. They're fed, they're well tended, they're comfortable. But I know the cats, they would eat treats all day. The treats are under our control. They don't have control over when they get their treats. They don't have control over when they go outside. And they're fearful of things. There's a loud noise and all of a sudden they jump. They don't understand. And all it is the door shutting. Right? That's the animal realm. So we're free from those 3 situations. Thank you, God, right? They're horrible situations. I know that the animal realm, again, looks kind of enticing. One lama, there's a lama, Geshe Gelik, in North Carolina, a very nice lama, with one of our centers down there, and he visited us a couple of years ago. He's a young, you know, he's like Geshe-la's age, and very nice, and he's been in the States now about 12 years, maybe similar time to Geshe-la, And when they first came, these Geshis who live at these monasteries in South India, our culture is just shock for them. You can ask Geshe-la. It's shocking. And they think we're barbarians and things like that. So, and it's just very different the way the value system based on the monasteries and things. And I'm not laying a trip on us. It's just, you know, a culture that if you turn on the TV and it's all about, if you buy this Dodge Ram truck, you'll be happy. Come on. And people believe that. And then they need to go out, you know, it's very different than what they're doing at the monasteries, right? Doesn't mean they don't have desire at the monasteries and want a Dodge Ram truck, but it's not the force of their being, okay? So what happens is I asked Geshe Gelik and I said, well, it must have been really hard when, and he went to North Carolina, even different than Boston, it's the South, right? And I said, it must have been really challenging for you when you first got to the States. And his eyes widened and he said, oh yes. And then he said, one of the first students came up to me at my first teaching, and she said, Geshe-la, and he's a great scholar, and she said, could you give me a mantra, you know, a sacred saying, that I could say over and over so I could come back as a cat? He told me this, right? So for Tibetans, cats are kind of not a good rebirth. Not something you want to come back as. And even though I know 2 Geshis now that have cats, that they live with cats, and their cats are completely spoiled. You know, I was just taking care of one. And so then she said, can I have a mantra so I can come back as a cat? And then he paused, he's telling me the story, and then he looks at me and he says, can you imagine? Like he just couldn't even believe. So think about the animal realm. And what you do in a meditation, if you want to do formal meditation on precious human rebirth, is like we did an alternative one, meaning appreciate what you have, right? Like a little bit more nebulous, like think about fresh air and fresh water. Think about public education. Think about that you can go home tonight. This is a luxury for some people. You know you can go home tonight and you have a comfortable, warm bed to lie down in that's safe and, you know, relatively safe. Like, that's amazing. That's amazing. I was just in India and, like, I saw this one wicker bed out by this chai shop outside and 5 kids sleeping in it, right next to the road. You know, that's the people that have beds. So, I mean, in India, a lot of people are rich there, but I'm just saying, you see this and you kind of go, wow, it's really humbling. Right? So you can meditate like that of just thinking of many good things in your life. When the low self-esteem gets going, you have to counter. There's a lot of good stuff in my life. Okay? So when people have self-esteem issues, this is the meditation, is precious human rebirth. Okay? Who has animals in here? What do you have? What do you have?
A cat.
You have a cat. Be your cat. You know, take 5 minutes. You know, and be your cat. Actually, we'll do it right now. I just want to see if you have any, you know, see what... Okay, so just sit up straight. And it's perfectly fine to meditate in a chair, but have your feet straight down, like that, so the body's a little bit balanced. And just lightly close your eyes. And maybe silence your phones. And just first allow your mind to settle on your breath, a natural exhalation and a natural inhalation. If you have a pet, right now I want you to focus very much on their life, or focus on an animal that you know if you don't have a pet. Just take one animal, keep your focus on that one animal. let's explore right now, what is their life like every day? What sort of activities are they involved in? What do you think they think about? What do they do all day? How much of their life is under their own control? And right now, try to be that animal as best as you can. Try to put your mind in their body, walk around like them, eat what they eat, lick what they lick. Spend a little bit of time right now in their body, really trying to be them. So please relax. Come back into your life now. The life you have, and just observe anything arising in your mind right now. can open your eyes. How do you feel?
Horrible.
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 Why horrible? I mean, tell me about that.
Well, I don't have a pet myself, but I was with a dog today, and the franticness of that dog. He spends a lot of his time in a crate, and he is. I don't know where his mind is when he's in the crate, and the crate door is open, and he is like shot out of a cannon, and he runs and runs and runs and runs.
So you felt horrible being the dog, you're saying?
Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And coming back into your life now, how do you feel?
I feel sorry for him.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot more compassion for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just on an endless search for food and freedom, and he doesn't have. You know, he has to steal the food because he eats the food that he gets so fast that he hardly even knows he's eaten it. So then he's always looking to steal food, and that makes the people around him angry with him. You know,
this is the animal realm.
This is
right?
all.
This is...
It was just I couldn't. It was awful.
And sorry, could I just get some more water or somebody over there? I was just going to say, could I just get room temperature? Thank you. Just room temperature drinking water. Thank you so much. That's okay. So other observations? Yeah, please.
I felt very relieved coming back because I realized that being my dog, I was at the mercy of other people. I had no personal freedom and no control over my life, the quality of my life. And felt very frustrated. And by contrast, you know, my current being, you know, I have freedom to make decisions in how and where I'm going to live. And so there's a stark contrast between one realm and the other.
Other people? Yes.
Well, actually, I had mixed feelings. So when I was seeing myself in the dog, Lola, her name is Lola, and she loves food, and I was so happy, you know, because I knew that no matter what, my owner is such a nice person. She's gonna feed me, no matter she has a job, she doesn't have a job, she doesn't have to face a boss. So basically, me, Lola, as a dog, I would get what I want, you know, I was so happy. At the same time, as somebody else mentioned, there's less control. I don't have control over when I get to eat, when I get to go out, and so on. But I guess when I turned back to the human stage, I felt a sense of relief that, wow, I can own a dog. I can do so many things, but at the same time, I felt, this world, there's a lot of problems around me, and I have to face them, I have to solve them. So therefore, the mixed feelings, I would say.
Right, right. How many of you felt relief when you came back into your body? Not that many, huh? Okay. Yes. Sorry, where are you from?
Oh, I'm from India.
From India?
Yes.
Where in India?
I grew up in Calcutta, but my roots are from Rajasthan, but I work in the south, Bangalore.
Where in Rajasthan?
Near Jaipur.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, beautiful state, Rajasthan.
It is indeed.
Beautiful. And Kolkata is very nice as well.
Yes, a lot of culture.
A lot of culture, yeah. Really wonderful city. It has like a bad reputation in the States, but it's a great city. It's a really wonderul part of India. I like it very much. That's nice. So in India, so here's a question. That self-esteem issue we were talking about, do you feel that you have that in your culture?
I do actually, you know, but India is such a contrasting country, like just because I don't think we can say that, well, entire India, but
it's true, it's
but
very...
yeah, it depends on how the upbringing is. But I would say there is a tremendous amount in me. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Yes, it does actually.
Yeah, so it's similar with the cultures. Mexico cultures, you know, it's almost like not just about American culture, this low self-esteem thing. I find a lot of my European friends have it as well. Their cultures are just, you know, it's interesting. And sometimes if you really want to push the Precious Human Rebirth meditation further, if you've been at this for a little while, this is heavy, okay? I was thinking about India. You could imagine that you're a female dog in India.
Unspayed.
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 Like,
Oh.
or in an undeveloped country.
Oh.
You know, I mean, it's an animal realm, but it's like a hell realm, really. And they don't live that long often. You know, they have litters of babies, they can't feed them, they're starving. It's quite awful like that. So sometimes in meditation centers we'll do a deeper meditation and you can sit with that for a little bit, but it's nice to just start. So usually what happens with Precious Human Rebirth, and this takes a little time because you get used to doing meditation, is you come back and there's a sense of relief into your life. But it's also very good to have the compassion where you realize the animal realm, you know, so there's a mixed thing. It's suffering, an amazing amount of suffering. And you can have compassion and you realize, I don't have that life. That's not my life. You know, I have control over my life. I can do these things. I can choose. And then I think it was you who said that then I need to do something now with my life. It starts to give your life meaning. I need to figure out how I can help all these beings. And right now we're pretty limited. As ordinary human beings, we're limited. As Buddhas, you're unlimited. You know exactly what to do for the dogs and anybody like that. Back there, yeah.
So I had a slightly different response. I used to have a rabbit, and currently we have rabbits outside of our house in our yard. We also have coyotes and hawks and so on. And so as I was imagining this rabbit, you know how rabbits just move very quickly when they hear something. They're always on the lookout. And I know that feeling quite well. And so when I came back to being me, I was thinking about how I do that in my life, and decided that I didn't need to do that, that I could learn to take a moment to decide how scary a situation was, and to recognize the situation for what it was.
Well, that's very empowering. That's great. But see, what I'm saying is that's very powerful, because from the meditation, you come to a place of more wholeness for yourself. That's part of meditating on Precious Human Rebirth, where it gets you. That you start to take action and realize that there's meaning in your life, or you're figuring out a way to make meaning in your life. So that's very powerful. You know, I mean, that's one of the positive benefits of this meditation, like that. It's interesting you brought up rabbits, because it just reminds me briefly of, rabbits are actually animals of prey. Like, it's part of their nature, you know. Like you said, they're always darting, and so a friend of mine got, this years ago when I lived in San Francisco, he got a rabbit, pet rabbit, he and his husband, and they kept it, and they had it in a little cage, and when they were home, they'd let it out, and it would, you know, and we had a meeting one night in his house, and all of a sudden, like, there's something at my elbow, and the rabbit's just nibbling. But, you know, it would just come up in the side, and it was very comfortable, and, you know. So one day he came home from work, and he comes to the cage. The rabbit's on its side, the ears are like flopped over, and it's just like, and he's like, oh my God, it's dead. Like, nothing was wrong, but it's dead. He'd never seen it like that before. It was always in its cage, like this, you know, totally flopped out, 1 foot in the air, you know. And he's like, Jimmy? And the name was Jimmy, right? Anyway, and he goes, Jimmy, and it doesn't move, you know, and he goes, Jimmy, and all of a sudden he says, Jimmy, and he kind of shakes the cage a little bit, and the thing springs up and is like, back in position, you know, totally, because what happened is it was so relaxed there and safe, it totally chilled. And it was just like, you never see rabbits like that because they never have an opportunity to do that, you know. So he said it just was so relaxed, he just kind of like, you know. I thought that was so funny because their total nature is to be on guard. Okay? So I'm just giving you an example of how you could meditate. Is you could do that this week, is check out an animal, or be a squirrel, and think about how hyper, and the nuts, and they have to gather them, and then they have the season, and the winter's coming, and then in the winter, when you get a big snowstorm here, what are they going to eat? So they have to have that store of nuts in that thing, or forget it. That's their winter. And you see them by the end of the winter, they're skinny. You know, but they go into, you know, at the beginning of the winter and they're all plumped out. And I see when we have woodchucks. I never know the difference. Woodchucks, hedgehogs, I don't know, groundhogs. Are they all the same? Woodchucks and groundhogs are the same. Okay, we have those. I'm pretty sure it's those, and there's a family. They're gone all winter underground, hibernating. Then, right around now, they're going to start to make an appearance. They come out and look like the most bedraggled things I've ever seen when they come out in April. They're all matted and they're kind of mangy, and then, you know, 2 months go by, they start eating all the clover, and their coats fill out, and so it's interesting to just be those animals, see what it's like, how terrified they are, the least little noise out there, and how you eat. Can you imagine eating in fear continually? Every bite is like, you know, that's how a lot of animals in the wild eat. Every moment, that rabbit, that hawk could come down at any second and grab it, you know? So they're, so just something to think about, to see about. I have decisions, I have choice and freedom to make decisions in my life, to control things. Let's go through some of the other freedoms. So 4 of these other rebirths. So we talked about the 3 lower rebirths. There's a higher rebirth in the human realm. It's called the God realm. The God realm. Okay, there's 2 God realms. So there's 6 realms of existence in our cosmology. Okay? 3 higher realms, 2 God realms and the human realm. And then we have the animal realm, the Preta realm, and the hell realms. Okay? So the God realms, when I first heard about the really nice hedonistic God realm in Buddhism, I thought, well, that's where I want to go. That sounds really good. It's a perfect situation, and you have every pleasure affordable to you. So, however, it's not permanent. And they say you use up a lot of positive energy being in those realms, so you tend to end up in a lower rebirth after. You use up a lot of what's called merit, being in a God realm. And at the end of their lives, they suffer greatly because they realize they're going to die and there's nothing they can do about it. And then the next realm down is a jealous God realm. So they're jealous of the other God realm. Okay? So I remember a friend of mine, her father, a nun in our tradition, her father was I think the creator of Gunsmoke, the TV show, years ago. And I think when her parents died, separate individually, but she was told, I thought, that her mother went to a jealous God realm or something like that. And the thing is, the way her mother's human life was almost like that. You know, always looking at the other person. Like, she had everything. They were kind of in Hollywood, and they had money and all this. And so she had this very easy existence and all the means, but she was always like looking at other people. Desire, you know, oh, why don't we have that? We should have that. I want one of those. I want this kind of thing. So then she ended up creating the cause to be in the God realm. Or perhaps from that God realm you come back into a human realm with that constant dissatisfaction, like that. So something to think about. But the problem with those God realms is they're so pleasurable, or you're so consumed with jealousy, you don't have much incentive to practice Dharma. The reason the human realm is optimum is you have a balance of leisure and suffering. The suffering motivates you to practice, and the leisure affords you the time and the space to practice. So we have the best situation right now. We really do. So let's try to make use of it. Let's try to figure out, when am I happy? What lends meaning to my life? What would I like to do? Let's just think about things that you do. Vocations. A lot of people get into like being 50 and they haven't really sorted out what they really, or they've been doing something they didn't ever want to do. They don't like doing. Okay? I think there is something to be said about those books that say, do what you love, the money will follow. I think there really is something to be said for that. So it's never too late to start something. And even if you have a job that you hate, and you're close to a pension, and you're close to retirement, fair enough. If you have that goal set, I had a job, this is a short time, I had a job for 2 years. When I got into the job, within 3 months I knew it was like, this is like a lost cause, this job. And just the way it was structured for me to do what I needed to do was very difficult. The office was very dysfunctional. There were some nice people there, but there were a lot of problems with, it seemed better on the outside. And then I realized there were some good things about the job, and I could save some money and take some time off and do a retreat. So that was my goal. I stayed there for 2 years, and I had some very nice benefits around the job with this intention that I was going to have a very cheap apartment, save all my money, and then I went to India for a couple of years. So if you have a certain goal that's going to afford you the thing that you want, but make sure that that thing that you want is going to be there and not too far down the road. Like that. I've spoken to someone who gave up my career, another career with money and all that, and I did turn a corner. In the beginning was very hard. It was really hard. I didn't have a lot of money in the beginning, and I was struggling, and I was even questioning if this was the right thing to do, to live at centers and work at centers and serve centers, and I just kept going because the motivation, I thought my motivation was quite good, and it was again that feeling going to bed at night where I really thought I was doing the right thing, and I just stayed with it, and it has its challenges, but I never looked back. I never went back and couldn't do it and had to say, well, I got to go out and be an engineer now and make some money or something. So I think it's important to find that thing, because we tend to work most of our days, so find a thing that you're going to enjoy doing, and it could be something simple. Right? So there's also a level, for some of you in this room, I'm not sure, but where the competition gets you. So to, let's say, work at the convenience store, or work in, I've always wanted to work in a bookshop. I've never had a job like that yet, but I'd love to, or in a library, because I love to read. And yet, would that have been okay for my Washington, D.C. political mind to say, oh, I work part-time in a bookstore? Because would my friendship judge me to say, oh, she's working, like as if she's working in a bookstore. Now I hear people working in a bookstore, and I'm always like, really? Like, wow. I think they must be really smart, or seriously. So it's all about these ideas we think about, the reputation. And I say do what you love. Do what you love. Don't care what people think about that. It doesn't matter. If you love something, people will see that. That impresses people. I ended up leaving this conventional life, doing my unconventional life, living in this cabin in the woods, or in the center. And then here come my hotshot political friends came to visit, and then they were like, wow, this is nice. Like that. So I think people will see that you're happy, that you're really in there. So those are 4 things we are free from, the first 4 freedoms. The remaining 4 are we're free from 4 unfavorable human states. Okay? You're free from being born, free from a birth in either, wait, let me see one. Oh, here's one. In a remote or barbaric place. Okay? Meaning, what's a remote or barbaric place? Is sometimes they say barbaric places where you're not allowed to practice Dharma. Saudi Arabia. You're not allowed to practice Buddhism in Saudi Arabia, as far as I know. I know a woman that lived there. She wanted to get a magazine, Buddhist. She said, you have to send it in a brown wrapper. I can't get the normal mandala. It comes in a clear wrapper. It's illegal in Saudi Arabia. That would be considered barbaric. It's not like they're killing each other, but if you don't have the freedom to practice your religion, it's a little barbaric. So we're free from that. Free in Boston, there's centers everywhere, okay? And you're also free from being at a time when an enlightened being didn't live. The Buddha lives now. Okay? Shakyamuni Buddha is our historical Buddha 2,500 years ago, manifested himself, got enlightened, and then he taught. Okay? That's extraordinary. And we're alive now, and all these things came from those teachings. You know, now we have His Holiness the Dalai Lama and other fantastic teachers like that, and they tell us how they got to the treasure chest. You know, they've got maps, everything. You know, why don't we want to go there? Why are we not on the path right now? Something to ask yourself. Don't you want to get free? Right? It's your choice, okay? So we're free from those two situations. Being in a remote, barbaric place, and we're free from being in a thing where an enlightened being never lived and taught. Number 3, we're also free from not having sound body and mind. Okay? If you are mentally incapacitated, you can't understand the Dharma. I met a woman once, partially deaf, came to a retreat with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. We sat her right next to a giant speaker. She still couldn't hear. Couldn't hear any of it. Okay? That's an obstacle. And we're free from living under the blinding influence of grossly distorted attitudes and beliefs. I'd say so, right? We're free from that. You know, sometimes you're in some kind of other political system, and they're like, I was thinking of maybe the Cultural Revolution in communist China. You know, an indoctrination, turn your parents in, they're spies, they're evil. That would be a really heavy kind of trip. Okay? Here are the 10 richnesses, or 10 endowments. Again, divided into 5 environmental, 5 personal. Okay? 5 personal ones, related to the 8 freedoms. You have a human body. You're human. Fantastic. Best situation you have. Okay? You're born in a land with a strong spiritual culture, right? And you're allowed to practice Buddhism in this culture. You're born having normal faculties, which we just discussed. You are born free from having committed any of the 5 heinous crimes. Okay, this is what these are. These are heavy things. Killing your mother, killing your father, killing an arhat, and an arhat is someone who has brought an end, a permanent end to all their suffering. Drawing blood from a Buddha, from an enlightened being with intent to harm. So not being a doctor, not taking blood like that. And the last is causing a schism, causing a disharmonious separation and breakage in a spiritual community. Like that. 5 personal endowments. Okay, so if you've done those 5 heinous crimes, it creates enormous obstruction for you to get enlightened in that lifetime and to progress spiritually. However, you can purify anything. Of course, you don't commit these crimes thinking, well, I can purify later. But they're just really heavy things. For obvious reasons, you can tell, you know. Seems kind of heavy. Okay, number... personal endowments. The last of the 5th, personal endowment, is having interest in the Dharma. Okay, so that's something you have, is you have interest. If you're here tonight, there's some interest. Great. Okay, here's the 5 endowments, environmental conditions. Okay, you're born in an era when an enlightened being manifested, an enlightened being taught. His teachings are still flourishing. There are followers of the lineage, and there is compassionate assistance from many benefactors for study and practice. So I think that's traditionally how you would meditate and consider, and you'd go through each of those 18 situations slowly. We already went a little bit, we did a brief one on the animal realm, tried to be an animal. And what you do is, you could stay with the animal one for 2 weeks. And every morning when you get up, have a little practice, and 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if you have longer, 20 minutes, because eventually you start to have a realization of precious human rebirth, meaning, intellectually some of you have it here, where you go, yeah, I know it's good to be human, but you don't have it here. So analytical meditation on the Lam Rim, meaning you're analyzing, you know, I'm going to be the cat again, I'm going to understand how does a cat go through its day. That's what it eats. I personally think cat food is disgusting, the wet cat food. We feed them every morning. It's disgusting, it stinks, right? And it has goopy things in it, you know, I don't know what they are. But, you know, you go through that. I don't really want to eat that. It does, you know, and you go through each of those things, and I analyze again and again. And the cat, I notice how she jumped when the door shut, and I noticed how she wanted to go out and nobody let her out. And then I noticed how they have to poop in that box, you know, and then they have to play with it and cover it. Like, think about it. It's disgusting, you know. So you want to come in from this side and this side and this side and other animals, you know, and other, you know, and then change from your domestic species and go into the sea and go think about the hawk trying to hunt. And, you know, I know in some areas where they have eagles, like in the mountains in Nepal, some of the eagles, oh God, somehow this really gets my mind. They have baby goats, and sometimes a big eagle will carry off a newborn goat to its nest to eat with its young. Can you imagine? The goat, the terror, the baby goat, and you hear it like in the air, you know. Nothing to do, nothing can do, you know. Helpless like that. That's the animal realm. Just terrified and, you know. So you really get into this where suddenly it moves in intellectual understanding from here to here. And you have a realization, and then you really realize, like, I have this amazing situation. And then what you do is, then you take your placement meditation, meaning I'm going to try to focus my mind right now on that experience that I'm having. And it deepens the realization. You know, and then your life starts to change. And your mind starts to change. So that's the benefit of analytical meditation on the Lam Rim. And I actually have a weekend in mid-April at Milarepa that I'm leading, that we're going to be doing more meditation like that. And then a week, the end of June, that I'm going to lead a week's retreat up there, just focused on you know, Lam Rim meditations like that. And some teaching and discussion and things like that. You can join us if you'd like to have a weekend in a beautiful retreat center like that. So, excuse me, does it make sense? Makes sense? Am I communicating, as Lama Yeshe used to say, communicating? So, questions, other questions? There was a question back there earlier. Did you have a question before? No? Somebody back there? Yes.
Could you just highlight for me and us the things that you're suggesting we do this week?
Yes. What I would do is, when you wake up in the morning, try to set a positive motivation. Again, thinking how you might be able to lend more benefit, helping others more. Then I would try to take a moment to appreciate what I do have. And then I would say, if you can explore a little bit of what lends meaning to your life, and when are you happiest, when are you not, try to make a little chart. What you're noticing would be fantastic if you want to take it to that level. And if anyone wants to continue on doing individual meditations of any of these situations you're free from or that you have. And the last thing I would say is, what we do at the end of the class and what you can do every evening is dedicate any positive energy that you've created during the day. Even if you forgot your motivation all day, dedicate to being able to pursue a path to full awakening as quickly as you can, so you can really be of the most benefit to others. Does that sound doable?
Thank you.
Does that sound possible to people? If it's too much, just do one of those things. But see if does it make a difference in your life. You know, if it doesn't benefit you, but you need to try it a little bit. 1 week is not a long time to try.
And the gratitude drop. The drop of gratitude.
Yes, like that. I think that'd be great to try that appreciation. Absolutely. Drop of gratitude. Yes, question back there?
Yes, you were saying how, you know, we have to have certain focus on me. What happens if I have no ambition for enlightenment? I just want to be the best person I can be. for myself and for others.
So do you feel like you're like that now?
I've been working on it for a while, I try to be. And I'm only human, so yes.
Right, well that's good, that's fantastic. So the thing is, what do you do when problems arise for you?
I start with the basic philosophy that I can't change how I act until I change how I react, and I work on that on a daily basis.
Okay, so I mean that sounds fine. I just think keep going with that.
But, never mind.
Yeah, I mean I think that's fine, just if you wake up every morning, you want to be a good person, no problem.
I just don't have any ambition to try to be Buddha or anything like that. I'm
That's
just
okay.
trying to see how it fits into that.
That's
It's
okay.
not my focus.
Absolutely, that's not a problem. I just think at some time you're going to hit an insurmountable problem and you're going to feel really limited. So, but some people don't have that feeling, that's fine. I'd like to be unlimited in how I could help others because I could really help. Because I just see so much suffering and it's so difficult.
That's a matter of perspective though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but how do you mean?
How do I mean? It's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
You're reaching to what you feel like you need to reach for to do what you want to do. I mean, there are different paths, but I appreciate
Yeah,
the view of
absolutely.
behavior here. On human behavior, I think is amazing when I come here and when I listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think just keep doing what you're doing if you feel fine with that and you're helping people, no problem. Yeah, sounds great. Yes?
I think somebody mentioned that it's within our control to control our mind. But I find it really difficult to control my mind because it goes in all directions.
Yes.
So, could you, I know it's a very difficult thing probably, but could you suggest some remedy for that?
Well, I've been at this for 26 years and I still can't control my mind. So this is a lifetime's path. So you just have to keep at it, meaning you're coming to classes, there's going to be some study, there's going to be some practice. You have to set up a meditation practice on the side. You have to eventually get that going. I highly recommend that. And some people are much more into the scholarly path. Some people want to show up once a week and just sit in a class and not do anything else. However much you want to put into it is what you'll get back out of it. But it does take time. And slowly things start to change. But it really is a lifetime's thing, so it's not for everybody. But you can see great strides. How many of you have been around this path for a year? Okay, do you notice any difference in your mind?
More than a year, oh yes, definitely.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
How long have you been?
Seriously? For
Yeah.
about a year.
A
Less
year?
than that.
And
Huge
any
difference.
change a year ago?
Huge.
Huge difference.
Because it's reminding yourself on a daily basis and doing these changes and looking at things differently.
Yep.
And I found that some of the teachings by Venerable came here in December. She made a very simple point, which I've said over and over again to people, is that she said, sometimes being happy takes work. It's not something you just click a light switch and it just works. And you have to work at it every single day, practicing it like something else, like playing a piano or like playing basketball or something like that. Doing these things and pushing it forward every single day and reminding yourself and actually living that way. Once you make that change, it's like 180 degrees. But you have to keep at it and keep doing it.
Right.
And before that, I actually started taking this stuff seriously. I never really did that. Kind of just sat there and let things happen. I didn't look at things a different way. And once I did, it made a huge difference. But it's still something I know that I have to keep reminding myself every single day.
Right.
And once I started doing that, it made such a difference.
Right. So, I mean, this is 1 year. And most people I know, I just ask them, look back a year. If you look back 5 years, those you've been around 5 years, it's huge. It's huge, you know? So I think we have to give ourselves credit for that. And we have to give ourselves credit for the small changes. Americans want big changes. I should be enlightened by tomorrow. I should be a Buddha and I should have a gold thing coming out of my head. Come on, you know, it's not realistic. But there's lots of little realizations we have. And that's what we have to rejoice about. That's significant. But we need to see something really big, and that's not this spiritual path. Occasionally you have some kind of insight suddenly, but it's all these little, it's steps on the path, steps on the path. Yes?
So, I hear all the time, and I've been very open to any spiritual path for my life. And what I hear is thinking about such, or you use the word thinking a lot. And I don't feel as though I think about anything. I mean, I feel that when something new happens, some new experience, a new direction that I take, awareness that happens simply because I go into a mindless state. Like I'll be maybe upset with my husband or something, and I'll suddenly realize that I'm angry, and then I may or may not go into a mindless state where an idea pops up that feels like a new thought that just makes me calm, and it's a new direction for me to go in. It's a realization. And so I've had so many of these in my life, but I find that I can't think through any of these things. It's not really helpful to me. And I've always wanted to ask this question.
Right.
Do some people just find it very difficult to think through things, and so that's not their way?
To analyze, you mean?
Yeah.
To investigate something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some people it's not, like some people can't visualize. If you say to visualize something, some people, nothing. So I think some people just are not analytical people like that. So I think if you have a way that works for you and something, shifts in your mind, great. Like that. Yes?
I just wanted to say that I went through a very difficult personal experience at one time. And I was very fortunate to meet someone who was very well on the path. And I had no idea what the path was all about. But she explained it to me very well. At least I thought so. I understood it. That it was a very difficult path. Because our minds are a composite of a bunch of habits that we've picked up along the path, along during our lives. And she said that she had to work really hard to extirpate, root out each and every one of those bad habits. But she said when that happens, when you clear the field, you're in a state of blessing and grace. And she says that you're not trying anymore. It's effortless. And she says a lot of people don't make it, but a lot of people do. And she pretty much set me off on that path. And I was able to overcome a very, very challenging experience. I was paralyzed from my neck down. And I was told by all of my neurosurgeons that I would never ever walk. And she taught me how to meditate. And she said mind over body. And it took me forever, like 3 months to learn how to meditate, at least, but I felt it was very comfortable. She gave me a mantra, which I found very helpful. And at first I was very cynical, but I was able to rein in my mind because I was in a state of depression. I wanted to end my life. And I was totally dependent on other people for all my bodily needs. But I started releasing all the tension in my mind, my nervous system, my muscles, those muscle spasms, that I felt.
Do you have a particular point you want to make, or
the point is
we're out of time.
The point is that I think that it sometimes takes a challenging experience to get you on the path, but I think you learn as you go, and some people actually do get there to that state of blessing or enlightenment. And I think we all need to believe that we have that potential inside of all of us.
It can be helpful, sure. Yeah, sometimes it takes a tragedy for somebody to wake up. Or to, how people get religious when somebody gets a cancer diagnosis and like that. So it would be nice to do it naturally, without having the track, you know, or without being at the end of your life when some people all of a sudden, and then it's too late. So, and then we all have that potential. I think it's very nice to feel that you have that potential, which also counters low self-esteem. Yeah. Is there one last question somebody else had there? Else in the middle? No? Okay. Yes, one last question.
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time talking about reflecting on the negative aspects of the animal realm. I was wondering if you could talk about some of the things that we could do to try and to embody positive characteristics of animals. So
to embody positive characteristics?
Because there's a lot of other, I come from a background of like theater and movement, and we spend a lot of time sort of in that place, and it seems like to me there's sort of that it's sort of like it can be a little dismissive to just say I want no part of anything to do with, you know.
Well, I love animals. I'm a big animal lover. I don't want to be an animal, and I think you should be careful if you're emulating animals. You can create the cause to come back as an animal, you know. Now I know I used to be in theater as well, so I understand that, but there's a lot of great things you can see about animals. I mean, there's wonderful traits about animals, but I don't want to be mirroring them all the time in my own life to create that. You know, basically, what gets you into an animal realm is intense ignorance and confusion, laziness, and oversleeping. Really, because that's what they do. That's what a lot of them do. So it kind of makes sense. They're confused a lot. They don't understand. That's really what creates the cause for the animal realm. But we don't, as a Tibetan Buddhist practice, necessarily really dwell on the good parts, because you see, you know, there's some pleasant things about animals, and a lot of us live with pets, and we wouldn't if we didn't enjoy them, and things like that. So I don't know if that really answers your question, yeah. Yeah, sure. So I'd like to dedicate, and just in closing, what we do is we dedicate the merit. We take all the positive energy. If we created any positive energy tonight, we kind of invest it, right? So what we invested in our tradition is for us being able to clear obstacles from our, perhaps, those of you interested in establishing a daily practice, learning to meditate, deepening our meditation practice, being able to understand more of what we study. And I'd like to dedicate any of this merit that we created to that, and if it's helpful to get us to pursue a spiritual path that will help us reach a place where we're unlimited in how we can best serve all others, that would be fantastic. I'd also like to dedicate to our main teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, to his full recovery from a stroke he had a couple of years ago, and his good health, and for Geshe Tenli's long life and good health, and all the precious teachers in our traditions, and also for all the conflictive areas all over the world, may they be pacified instantly, and all the other beings in the world who need additional healing, may they receive it immediately. Thank you very much, and we will continue next week at the same time, and I think my next class is Thursday night. Is that right, Thursday night?
Thursday, we'll start with the mountaintop, value for retreat.
Thursday night is about retreat, yes. So if you want to hear a little bit more about why do we do retreat, what's retreat about, how do I do retreat, I could say you need to come to Milnery at the Center. But anyway, we're going to talk about that Thursday night. Saturday and Sunday, Saturday morning and afternoon, and Sunday afternoon we have a Conquering Anxiety and Depression, which I'm sure doesn't interest anyone in this room. And then we'll have Monday night, and is that the last one?
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night is the
It's how I met my teacher.
is about meeting a teacher, like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And